Well, as you can see, that there's a lot of weeds in the garden. It's weeding time. It's time to prop up the corn. But to prop up the corn, we have to weed out. We have to pull all the weeds out of the garden. It's for sustenance. The garden is for the three sisters. We can't allow the weeds to overtake the garden. We must weed out the garden. And so in that spirit of weeding out the garden, there is a weeding out that's taking place right now on a national level that is affecting every person, every native person across the country. What this process is, so-called gathering of the first ministers, the premiers of every province. And what's taking place there is that the people from the Assembly of First Nations, which is the elected band council systems across the country, they're going and they are demanding a seat at the table. They are asking to be present in the internal workings, the internal mechanisms of the government of Canada. The very government, puppet of the British Crown, that is responsible for the genocide upon our people. There's genocide upon the native people that have kidnapped, raped, murdered our children in residential schools and continue the same policy on our peoples today. And that is, of course, for the sole purpose of that the pirates that came here under the British Crown, under the pirate empire, that they came here to steal, and they are still stealing. They have always been thieves, and they are thieves right up to this instant. But what has happened with the native people, now so-called native people, asking to participate now in that government that has raped us, that has kidnapped our children, raped our children, murdered our children, killed the Indian in the child? Now, anybody who is in the Assembly of First Nations and asking for a seat at that table, I say is stupid. They are stupid people. Because when they ask for a seat at the table, you are asking for representation within that governmental system. And as you know, they say you can't have taxation without representation. So what do you think is going to happen the moment that these people who are supposedly representing native people, because they're the Assembly of First Nations, what's going to happen now that they are asking for representation in the Canadian government? Well, what's going to happen now, what that means is that now that you have representation, you have taxation. And so this is the reason why right across the country now, native people are now feeling the squeeze of taxation. When you go across the border, you are feeling this because it's in conjunction with Donald Trump's new order, which is in effect now as of this week. For any natives going across the border now, you have to have your passport. You have to have now to work in the United States. You have to have a green card. And this is all because of the agreements that the idiot band councillors made under the self-government agreement starting in the early 80s right up until the mid-90s. In Kahnawake, the mayor of Kahnawake, Joe Norton, signed the agreements that every mayor across Canada, in every reservation, every elected mayor made an agreement. Everything concerning native people must come into order with the Canadian Charter of Rights. And so this is the reason why now you have the idiot, the Assembly of First Nations, now asking for representation within the Canadian government. These are not our people. And the Canadian government and politicians know that, because the same laws apply to politics everywhere around the world. If you seek representation in a foreign system, that means you are committing treason to your own system, to your own people. And this is what the Assembly of First Nations is. This is what every elected mayor in every band council on every reserve across so-called Canada is. They are traitors to their people because in the first place, 20 years ago, they agreed to abide by the Canadian Charter of Rights. And so now, when things happen that, say, affect our rights, and you have a band councillor like in Kahnawake, what's happening again, and they stand up to say something, the people think that it's legitimate. But realistically, when you sign a contract relieving yourself of your rights, And then when somebody comes along and steps on what you believe is your rights, you have no legal recourse. And this is because all the stupid people who participate in the elected band council system cut their throats 30 years ago under the so-called blanket policy of Aboriginal self-government. Now that self-government was done under the two-row wampum treaty. Now, people across Canada, under treaty this and treaty that, they believe that you have something to defend yourself with, but you do not. All the so-called number treaties, they are not treaties. You can call it that all you want, but anybody who knows politics and who knows business knows that those are not treaties. They are simply business arrangements. And those business relationships, like any contract in the non-native world, can be broken as long as the parties are corrupt and they go into it with their own wordings, which the Canadian government did, knowing that they are corrupted. Then they come in to trick the ignorant people in the elected Indian Act band councils across the country who participate in the chaos of democracy. They participate in that and they compromise themselves legally, so the people don't have anything to stand on. So this is happening right now, presently, and this is for everybody to know. That the Assembly of First Nations asking for participation, a seat at the table at the First Ministers Conference, these are no longer Native people. I don't care who you are, I don't care what you say. You're a traitor to your own people, to your own mothers, to our ancestors who have stood against the corruption and tyranny of the pirate empire of Britain, and now these people who are the victims of the residential schools that were transferred over into becoming schools in our communities that are controlled by our own people, who are teaching our children, doing the same poison as the residential schools done. And so these are the people that are in the Assembly of First Nations. These are the people that are asking for this representation. This is the weeding out. To pull this out of your own mind, the lie of that the Assembly of First Nations is Native. They are not Native. They do not represent Native. They are puppets of the British Crown, and the only thing they represent is the policies of the British Crown. They join the non-Native political system. They are the people who have had their identity changed. They have successfully killed the Indian in their child. They are no longer of this. No matter what nation you say you are in, I know your law the same way that I know my law. And it is applicable to you regardless if you are Seychelles, regardless if you are Mi'kmaq. It is applicable to you the same way that it is applicable to me. Now, the garden is being weeded. We are pulling the lies out of the minds of the people. Now we are coming up into a time of where there will be chaos, but it will only exist within the elected Indian Act councils. We weed them out.